Fake news perspective, censorship, and the resistance. That's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm glad you're here. Let's take a moment just to welcome all of our friends, even the frenemies. I say hello, how are you? I hope you're doing well. We got a couple of things to talk about. First, I got to welcome you to the channel. Here is where we apply conviction and logic to the news, culture, politics, and anything else that crosses my mind. I'm glad you're here. I'm C. Scott, and this is my view. So what up, friends? It is like the 14th of November when I'm recording this, which is 11 days after the election, and still there's really no winner. I know, you've heard there's a winner and the election is over, but it's not, and that's what we're going to talk about today. I'll give you my feelings, my thoughts on that, and why you should be in agreement with that. First is as a disclaimer, yes, I am still Trump 2020. I know it's not over, and officially it's not over. But this is not an effort to deny, the true winner. And it's also not an effort to pretend that Donald Trump didn't lose. Once we get to the end of the situation where everything is able to be verified, then we'll be able to know. And if Joe Biden wins, then, good for him, bad for the country. But if Donald Trump wins, then great. Right now, what we're trying to do is really find out who won, where we are, and what's going on. The other thing I wanted to add before we get into the stuff for today is not all my information or videos are going to be on politics. That's where we are right now. It's kind of the big deal right now, and I'm not doing videos every day. So last 3 that I've done before this are on politics, and this one is too, but once we get past this time, I'll definitely move on. So I hope you stick around. Subscribe if you like what I'm talking about. Agree with me. Hit that like button as we get through it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, maybe, leave them down below in the comment section. So as we get into it today, first thing I want to talk about is fake news. We have fake news all over the place as usual. Yes, it really is a thing, and yes, it's something that we have to deal with. I think from this point forward, at least for a long time, if you haven't already, we have to adjust our mind and our brain to the information that we receive. For a long time, and most people even now read certain things from certain websites, or they hear from certain people that they trust, and we have this confirmation bias that kicks in that tells us if certain people say certain things, or if we hear certain things from people that don't matter to us, we agree with it because it confirms our own bias. And when we're looking at media, especially today in 2020, we really need to keep an open mind, consider the source, find other avenues or other places, resources to get news and information from, because it really is the time of fake news. Has been reported, has been highlighted as such a big deal in the last 8 years, and Donald Trump has definitely brought it to the forefront and really kicked off that title, fake news. All right, so as we look at this fake news that's out, the reason I say it's fake news is almost everywhere you look, Joe Biden is considered to have won the election, and that's actually, it's not true. The election is under contest. There is still haven't gotten final results out of Georgia, and there's legal actions that are being taken all over the place. So electoral votes haven't been handed out, obviously because the electoral college has not met. Also, the state legislatures, whose job it is to verify an election, they also have not done that to the point where Joe Biden can be considered the president. So we have fake news. We're all over the place calling Joe Biden president-elect when that's just not factually true. And it's interesting that the claims and things that are being put against Donald Trump is that his claims are baseless and false, this, that, and the other thing. But to claim Joe Biden the president-elect is equally false because there haven't been any votes tallied, there haven't been any electoral votes that are definitely given out, and there are 6 very important states that are being contested with lawsuits, and some are just doing recounts and different things like that. So one recount is already happening in Georgia. The margin of victory was very, very close, and so they're doing a recount there, which was just a part of their rules. We're also looking at challenges in Arizona, also in Nevada, challenges in Michigan and Wisconsin, based on the way that things played out there. Particularly for Arizona, Joe Biden was ahead by a whole lot, and as they continued to count the votes, that margin was getting less and less and less and less, and it was moving momentum-wise toward Trump. I haven't heard of a result yet. There might be one very soon, might be one by the time I get this video uploaded, but at the time that's recorded, they had not declared a winner through Arizona. We're going to look at some different things about why these results are and will be contested and what we're going to do as we move forward. But again, as you look at the news, as you watch news on TV, as you look at things on whatever device you use, they're acting like it's already over and Trump is being a sore loser and a spoiled sport and is not going along with the will of the people, but that's just not true. Another thing that you're seeing in the media or hearing a lot about in these last day or two is that Trump is trying to do some coup d'etat and overthrow the government and overthrow the election results and things like that. Again, the election results haven't been verified, haven't been solidified or finalized, so there can be no coup because there has not been a declared winner. So it seems like the plan the media has and the Democrats have and those that support Joe Biden is to call him president-elect as often as they can so that in most people's minds it's a done deal, making it harder to reverse that trend when the truth comes to light. There may be a time where the votes are found to be more for Trump. We also may get to the point with some of these lawsuits that some votes are thrown out because the rules were broken when the votes were counted, tallied, or when they were turned in. And so there's a lot that really could happen. It may be a long shot, it may be iffy, it may be this or that, but it can happen. And so their plan, it seems like, is to just throw up Joe Biden, say, oh, he's getting calls from world leaders, president-elect, 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 but he's actually not president-elect by his own admission before this, which we'll talk about in a moment. But he's also just not, because the election is under contest, hasn't been a decided winner just yet. Other thing the fake news is pushing is that they constantly say Trump or Trump supporters are pushing this narrative falsely. They're saying that the claims of parts of the election being fraudulent are baseless, or they're saying with no evidence. Well, you don't start out with evidence. If we're looking at a crime, first a crime has to be reported, then it has to be investigated. In that investigation, if they find evidence, that evidence is turned over to the court system where it will be judged. And so they're trying to skip to the end and saying, oh, well, Trump is saying this with no evidence, or his supporters are making these baseless claims. They're not baseless, number one. But again, you don't start out with evidence. We have to know that there's a problem and an issue. Then that can be looked into. Once it's looked into, there will or will not be evidence of a claim. But in the effort of the fake news to move past this, they're trying to say, no, there's nothing to see here. They have no evidence. There won't be any evidence. So let's keep moving on. Why would the fake news media, why would Joe Biden, why would general Americans not want to make sure that our election wasn't fraudulently held? Or why wouldn't people want to make sure that we can have trust in our election system? If you look at the counts right now, both Joe Biden and Donald Trump received more votes than any other candidate in history. The last record holder was Barack Obama in his first term, when he received over 69 million votes. And both Biden and President Trump are over the 70 million mark. And so there's a lot that's going on, and we'll look at some things in perspective that we need to keep in mind so that we don't go off the rails with the fake news media. In our perspective segment today, like I just said, one of the things we really need to keep in mind is that both candidates received a record number of votes. And so we need to keep in mind that this has been a crazy year. Lots of things have happened that have not happened before. And for us to rush to judgment is going to be a problem. I know there's people out there, oh, were you just saying that because your guy is losing? Well, my guy lost when Barack Obama won in both of his elections, right? In whatever year it was, 2008 and 2012. I never voted for Barack Obama. But you know what? There wasn't a whole bunch of evidence or fraud that was alleged at the time. So we sucked it up, we kept moving, and we did what we had to do day after day. And this is not the same situation. So when people tell you that, everything is normal and Trump is being outlandish and all this stuff has never happened before, that's not true. We need to keep a clear perspective. So we've had more votes that were cast than ever before. Also remember, particularly with the mail-in ballot situation and dealing with COVID-19 that we've been dealing with all year, some of the election rules in different places were changed less than 90 days before the election. When that happens, when you're dealing with millions of people and millions of ballots, there's not enough time to get everything to flow smoothly. And that's why everyone was, even before the election happened, was expecting the vote to take a long time, the tallies and the counting to take a long time, because we didn't know how long it was going to take to get this information in, and this was going on and that was going on. So don't forget, all these different things are new. The system was not updated even though the rules were. So some legislators or some county judges in this place or some governors in that place changed the rules, but things weren't able to catch up to their rules before the election started. We also had more early voting than we had before. Some people were actually voting literally 1 month before election day. Normally you have a week or two of early voting, and that was extended. So again, we're not dealing with normal situations. So we need to keep that in mind when we're getting our perspective straight. I believe, honestly, personally, that some of that was done on purpose to cause some confusion, to make it a little bit more difficult to find out what was really going on and to be a hindrance to Trump. But that's my personal belief. That's not something that we have any evidence for, and so I'm not going to say that it's 100% fact. That's just how I feel and the way I see it. And this was said even before the election took place, and that's why a lot of people were not for changing the system and updating things so close to the election before the changes and updates in the full system were going to be able to be made. So again, for perspective, some people are saying that Trump should just go ahead and concede. Hillary conceded and everybody else concedes and goes away, all that other stuff. Again, not true. Number one, for again perspective, Hillary Clinton, days before the election, said that Joe Biden should not concede under any circumstance. She did not concede the night of the election when the election was called, when there weren't any question about whether or not the votes were fraudulent. She conceded sometime a day or two after. She then spent the next 3 or 4 years, which is up to now, saying that the election was stolen from her. She shouldn't have conceded, that all these bad things had happened. And so really, you could just say that Trump is following her advice that she gave Joe Biden. Nobody got on her for making that bad advice. Nobody said that would be a threat to democracy and all these other crazy claims that they're making about Trump. President Trump is doing what Hillary Clinton said, not to concede under any circumstances. But again, it's not just any circumstances. There is more than enough reason to believe we have big issues with our election system. Another point for perspective. Remember, the last several years since Donald Trump has been elected, we were told that the Russians hacked into our election system, which even Barack Obama said, is not possible. You can't just hack in and steal an election. And they kept telling us about all this Russian collusion, and then they spent millions of dollars investigating that. That went nowhere. There was a call that Trump had that somebody supposedly blew the whistle on, but they did not go through the things that they were supposed to go through to actually be a whistleblower, and they wanted to keep this person's name and identity a secret forever. Trump released the transcript from the call. There was nothing inappropriate there, and then they still went on to try and impeach him. And they've been running attempts to take away that election over the last several years. But now, for our perspective, they're trying to say that Trump is staging a coup because he hasn't conceded, and that they're trying to take a closer look at the vote count. That makes no sense. It also makes no sense to just call this election, say that there's nothing to see here, even though there are lots and lots of reasons to believe, like we're going to talk about in just a moment. There's lots of reasons and evidence of fraud. There's a lot of smoke of fraud. Now we have to get down and see if there's an actual fire that had occurred. You know, there's a little more perspective that we can look at, and that is us on the right, the Trump supporters. We're not getting our way right now. We feel like things have been done inappropriately, but you know what? We're not on the streets rioting. We're not busting windows and pulling people out of cars and cussing people out, burning down buildings and doing all this other nonsense. We're not running around screaming no justice, no peace, and putting masks on and throwing water bottles at police and doing all this other nonsense. It's very interesting to me that the fake news media, like we talked about before, acting like President Trump is so wrong for doing what he's doing, even though he is absolutely 100% within his legal right to do that. We're not out there, again, acting crazy. More things have been done by especially the black community that continues to come after me for my stance and my support of Trump. You know, if a black person gets shot by a cop with no evidence, we will take to the streets. We will complain, we will break stuff, we will hurt people, we will burn stuff down with no evidence. So don't sit here and tell me that when we do have at least credible accusations of fraud, that we shouldn't stop and look into that. So Joe Biden's chief of staff is down on Trump for doing exactly what he, the chief of staff, wanted Al Gore to do just 20 years ago. All right, moving on. Let's talk about social censorship. Social media sites are censoring us like crazy. My videos probably aren't big enough, but if you look at some people who support Donald Trump and they are supporting the effort of waiting to see what really happened in there in the election results. If you look at a Fox News video, a Newsmax video, Officer Tatum video, Liz Wheeler, if you look at the Daily Wire, under their videos, YouTube has decided to put a note that the AP has called the election for Joe Biden. The AP that has no electoral jurisdiction anywhere for any reason. And they're saying, oh, you can get more information from Google. And they're trying not to allow people to just get their own information. Facebook has removed the title of president from Donald Trump's page, even though he's still the president. Even if he lost the election, he's still going to be president until the inauguration of a new president. But they've taken that title away from him to make it seem as though he's not the president anymore. There's also been issues where people are putting out information and they're hiding it or shadow banning it, as it's been called. Twitter has been putting all types of warning labels on the tweets of the president and his staff and all these different kind of things. So there's mad censorship all over the place, which is probably why it's difficult for you to really hear what's going on, really find out what the deal is. That's why I need you to share this video and like this video so that other people can get the word too. All right, last but not least, we're looking at the resistance. Resist we much? Yes, we are. Right now, still presently resisting because of ongoing issues with Arizona. They had some their ballot machines were having some issues over in Pennsylvania. You have hundreds of thousands of ballots that are being contested. Also in Michigan, ballots are being contested. Rudy Giuliani is saying that they have, I think, hundreds of sworn affidavits of people that were involved in the election that said that they saw fraud. You also have things being contested in Wisconsin. So there are enough states that if they have to change the presumed election results that they've put out, it can flip and go either way. There's been a map. There's a map that is put up of the Electoral College votes, and it has all the things that are settled, but then it grays out the states that are under contest. If you look, the electoral votes are heavier on Donald Trump's side than Joe Biden's side. So if you take away those things that are being contested, again, another reason Joe Biden shouldn't be called and is not the president-elect. We still have to see and get through the process and find out what's going on. So there's still a lot of things that are being held up, waiting to get accurate results from these states. One of the things that's holding up these accurate results are the machines that they decided to use. There's a company out there called Dominion Systems. They were apparently developed in and through a company in Venezuela, if you can believe it or not. And they actually send their information outside the country to do their tallying and things like that, and software. It was all that system was rejected by the state of Texas in 2019 and a couple other states that said, it just wasn't a secure system. So there are some real issues with this system, and that's the system that was used, I believe, in Michigan, some parts of Arizona, also used in Pennsylvania. And so there are hundreds of thousands of votes that are being contested. There are some definite, obvious issues with the computers. The Secretary of State from Pennsylvania said they had a glitch, and 6,000 Trump votes were switched to Biden votes, but then somebody brought it up and they switched those back to Trump. And, they called that a glitch. I wouldn't call that a glitch, but that's what they call it. So again, a lot of stuff. That's why we're resisting. That's why we're waiting to see what happens, because we want to make sure that as we move forward, one way or the other, the election wasn't stolen. Another thing to consider is that you remember that terribly whack debate between President Trump and non-president-elect Joe Biden, hosted by Chris Wallace, the fraud himself. Chris Wallace, at the end of the debate, asked Joe Biden if he was going to wait for independent certification before he claimed to win. He absolutely said yes. I'll put a link to that in the description so you can see it for yourself. A day or two after the election, he said, we need to wait. We need to let the votes be counted. We need to take our time. It's going to take a while. And then very shortly after that, he claimed victory for himself, falsely and fraudulently. So no, we're not giving this up. We're continuing to stand. We're continuing to resist the push and the pressure by the culture, by the media, by the whoever that says there's nothing to see here, when we know good and well there's plenty that we need to find out. All right, friends, that's it. Just know that things can change. Continue to be prayerful for boldness, for the truth to come out. If you want more information that I know you're not getting from the mainstream media, you can look at the epictimes.com. You can look at tatumreport.com. You can look at the Daily Wire. You can also look at, I believe it's freedompress.com. Look for information from Ted Cruz, Rudy Giuliani. They're staying on the forefront. They're putting stuff out. A lot of, especially Rudy Giuliani stuff, is being censored and being kicked to the side. So you're really going to have to search for it. You might even look over at parler.com, sign up over there, because they're not censoring the social media that's being pushed out. All right, my friends, I'm glad you stayed around. I appreciate it. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you next time. I'm C. Scott, and I'm out.